Over all the years I have spent studying attachment patterns and helping people understand avoidant behavior, there is one question that comes up more than almost any other. It is not about why avoidants pull away, what their silence means, or how to heal after being hurt by their distancing patterns. Those are important topics and they deserve attention. But the question people bring to me most often, usually in private and often with a lot of pain behind it, is much deeper. They want to know whether the avoidant truly formed an attachment. They want to know if the connection they felt was real or if it only seemed meaningful because of the intensity of their own emotions. The uncertainty becomes hard to bear. They remember moments that felt deeply personal, intimate, and life-changing. Yet later, when the avoidant pulls back or disappears emotionally, it creates a completely different story. The behavior seems to suggest that the relationship was never as important as it felt. That contradiction leaves people stuck between what they lived through and what they believe the avoidance actions are telling them. They struggle to trust either version of reality. And that unresolved conflict often hurts more than the breakup itself. Today, I want to address that conflict directly, not by offering empty reassurance or comforting words that sound nice but lack substance. Comfort without proof rarely lasts. Instead, I want to focus on the real psychological signs that reveal genuine attachment in an avoidant person. The challenge is that avoidant bonding does not look anything like bonding in someone who is securely attached. Most people are searching for proof using the wrong framework. They expect attachment to be obvious, direct, and emotionally expressive. Because of that, they miss the very signals that matter most. Before we talk about the specific things an avoidant says when they have truly bonded, it is important to understand what bonding actually means for them. Without that foundation, the signs can seem small when they are actually incredibly meaningful. For an avoidant, attachment is not usually felt as a comfortable move toward closeness. It is not a gradual opening that feels safe and welcome. In many cases, it feels disruptive. Their emotional defenses were built for a reason. Those walls were carefully put up over years of experience and reinforced by the belief that emotional dependence leads to pain at a level they may not even consciously recognize. They believe those defenses protect them from repeating old wounds. Because of this, genuine attachment becomes one of the most significant experiences an avoidant can have. When someone manages to move past those protective layers and reaches a place inside them that is truly personal and meaningful, it creates a shift that cannot easily be undone. From the outside, it may look like love. From the avoidance perspective, it often feels much more complicated. It can feel as though someone has become deeply important before they ever meant for that to happen. Suddenly, another person takes up space in their thoughts, emotions, and inner world in a way they did not consciously choose. That realization can feel unsettling because it challenges the very structure they built to keep their independence. As a result, attachment does not show up through dramatic declarations or obvious romantic gestures. Instead, it appears in subtle, indirect, and surprisingly revealing ways. One of the earliest signs is when they begin sharing vulnerabilities about themselves. These comments are often disguised as casual observations or self-critical remarks. They might say things like, "I'm not very good at relationships," or "I've always handled things better on my own," or "I usually mess this kind of thing up." On the surface, these statements seem simple, but underneath them lies something much more important. What makes these moments significant is that they represent a level of trust that avoidants rarely offer. They are quietly letting you see a part of themselves that they normally keep hidden. They are not presenting the wound directly. Instead, they reveal it from an angle that feels safer. The disclosure is honest, but it also gives them room to retreat if they feel exposed. In a sense, they are testing whether their vulnerability will be respected. The real clue is not just what they say, but what happens right afterward. There is often a subtle pause, a moment of waiting, a silence filled with observation. Their nervous system becomes highly alert as they watch how you respond. They are looking for signs of judgment, pressure, criticism, or rejection. If your response is calm, understanding, and free from attempts to fix them or force deeper disclosure, something important happens inside them. The avoidant learns that being emotionally honest did not lead to disaster. They discover that someone can witness a vulnerable part of them without overwhelming them. That experience is incredibly rare for many avoidants, and every time it happens successfully, the attachment grows stronger, even if neither person openly admits it. Another powerful sign appears in the way they remember things. I often think of this as the precision memory. It happens when an avoidant unexpectedly brings up something you mentioned weeks or even months earlier. It was not a major conversation. It was not a dramatic, emotional moment. It may have seemed completely ordinary at the time. Then one day they bring it up with surprising accuracy. They remember the exact detail, the specific story, or the small preference you casually shared. What makes this significant is not the memory itself. It is what that memory reveals. It shows that your words kept existing in their inner world long after the conversation ended. While avoidance may appear detached on the surface, genuine attachment often causes them to revisit interactions privately. They think about them, analyze them, and hold on to details they would never admit mattered. When they bring those details back into conversation, they are unintentionally revealing how much attention they have been paying all along. They are showing that what happened between the two of you was not forgotten. It was carried with them, revisited in quiet moments, and stored with a level of care that only shows up when real attachment has already taken root. This is one of the clearest yet most often overlooked indicators that an avoidant has formed a genuine emotional attachment. The reason it often goes unnoticed is because it looks so ordinary on the surface. Most avoidants are highly skilled at controlling how much of themselves they invest in relationships. They know how to stay involved enough to maintain connection while still keeping enough emotional distance to feel protected. Because of that, they rarely carry details from every interaction they have. Most conversations come and go without leaving a lasting mark. But when an avoidant remembers something you said weeks or months ago with remarkable accuracy, something different is happening. They are not recalling it because they made a conscious effort to memorize it. They remember because it stayed with them. It continued to take up space in their mind long after the conversation ended. The detail became attached to you, and you became attached to a place inside them where only meaningful people tend to exist. When they unexpectedly bring up a story you told, a preference you mentioned, or a passing comment you barely remember making, it reveals something important. It shows that your words did not vanish after they were spoken. They continued to live within the avoidant's private inner world. This is where genuine bonding often reveals itself. While they may appear distant in shared reality, internally they revisit conversations, replay moments, and reflect on interactions far more than they would ever admit. The attachment exists whether or not their behavior outwardly shows it. In many cases, they are thinking about you much more than they are expressing. The reason those details stay vivid is because you have become emotionally significant. Without consciously meaning to, they have started organizing parts of their inner life around your presence. Their thoughts kept returning to you because the bond has already taken root. The memory is not the signal itself. The signal is that they carried it with them when they did not have to. The third sign is one of the hardest to recognize because it often arrives disguised as something completely ordinary. It shows up in the form of casual references to the future. Most people hear these comments and think nothing of them. But when an avoidant includes you in their future without being prompted, it carries far more meaning than it appears to. They may mention a place they want to visit with you one day. They might talk about showing you something they love, introducing you to an experience, or sharing a future moment that has not happened yet. The comment may be brief and said casually, almost as if it slipped out by accident. For securely attached people, this is normal. When they feel close to someone, they naturally picture future moments together. It happens without any effort. For an avoidant person, however, this process is far more significant because their emotional system is built around keeping independence and reducing reliance on others. An avoidant who has not formed a real bond usually keeps their future mentally separate from other people. Their plans, goals, and visions tend to exist within a self-contained world where they remain fully responsible for themselves and dependent on no one. This separation helps them feel safe. It protects the emotional distance they depend on. That is why future references matter so much. The moment they begin including you in that mental picture, something fundamental has shifted. They are letting your presence into a space that was once reserved only for themselves. Even if they never say directly, I see you as part of my future. They are showing it indirectly. They are letting you know that when they imagine what lies ahead, your existence is already woven into the picture. In many cases, this is as close as an avoidant can come to openly admitting attachment. It is their way of revealing that you have crossed a line few people ever reach. The fourth sign may be the most powerful of all because it involves something deeply personal that the avoidant rarely shares with anyone. I call this the private territory disclosure. It happens when they reveal a piece of themselves that has stayed hidden from almost everyone else. What makes this important is that it is not always a dramatic confession. Sometimes it is surprisingly small. It could be a fear they have never spoken out loud, a memory from childhood they usually keep to themselves, a personal insecurity, or a private view on life that they have protected for years. Whatever form it takes, it comes from a place that is normally off limits. It belongs to a part of their inner world that they do not casually invite others into. When they share it, they often soften the moment with humor, downplay its importance, or quickly move on afterward. They reveal something real while at the same time creating an escape route in case the vulnerability feels too exposed. The reason this moment matters so much is because of what it represents on the inside. For the avoidant, sharing that hidden part is not simply joining a conversation. It is lowering a defense that has often existed for years. Every wall inside an avoidant serves a purpose. It was built to protect something sensitive. When they let you access a piece of that protected territory, they are taking a risk that feels far bigger to them than it may seem on the surface. They are trusting you with something they normally guard closely. More importantly, they are finding out whether that trust is safe. If they keep opening those doors with you, it means your presence has created a level of emotional safety that they rarely feel. In many ways, this is one of the strongest signs of real attachment because it shows that their protective system has started making exceptions specifically for you. And for someone whose entire emotional structure is built around keeping those walls intact, that kind of exception is rarely made without a deep and lasting bond already being there. The fifth sign is probably the most misunderstood of all. And because of that, I want to approach it carefully. I know many of you listening are carrying pain from being pushed away by someone you care deeply about. Because of that, what I am about to explain can be hard to hear if it is taken at face value. It requires nuance. It requires looking past the behavior itself and understanding the emotional dynamics underneath it. The sign I am talking about is what I call the personal push away. This is not the typical distance avoidants create when they simply need space. It is not the routine emotional retreat that lets them keep their comfort and independence. This is something much more intense. It happens when the attachment has become so significant that their nervous system starts treating the bond itself as a threat. At that point, the withdrawal becomes urgent, emotional, and highly activated. It is no longer about protecting comfort. It is about regaining a sense of control over feelings that have become too strong to ignore. What makes this kind of withdrawal different is that it becomes specifically centered around you. Instead of creating distance without explanation, they start linking the reason for their retreat directly to your presence. They might say things like, "You make me feel too much," or "I don't know how to handle this with you," or "Being with you feels overwhelming." Notice the difference. The focus is no longer on relationships in general. It is on you in particular. Someone who has not formed a real bond usually does not need to explain their distance through your unique qualities. They simply disengage. But when an avoidant has become deeply attached, they often find themselves facing something far more unsettling. They are no longer running from the abstract idea of intimacy. They are reacting to the specific emotional impact that one particular person has on them. That difference matters. The intensity comes from the connection itself and from what that connection is asking of them emotionally. In a strange way, this type of push away carries information that many people miss. It is not the healthy expression of love or commitment you deserve. It is not a replacement for consistency or emotional availability. But it does reveal something important. It reveals that the attachment has become strong enough to shake the foundations of their self-protective system. Their independence, emotional distance, and carefully maintained control begin to feel unstable in the face of what they feel for you. The withdrawal becomes proof of inner conflict. Part of them is attached. Another part is afraid of what that attachment means. That fear often creates behavior that feels confusing, hurtful, and contradictory. Yet underneath it is an admission that your presence has affected them in a way few people ever have. You are no longer just another relationship. You have become someone whose importance is impossible for them to ignore, even when they are trying desperately to escape the feelings that importance creates. There is also a sixth sign that deserves attention because it shows up less in words and more in actions. While the other signals often appear through conversations and disclosures, this one reveals itself through behavior. It is the instinctive protection that appears without being asked for. When an avoidant has genuinely bonded, they often begin paying attention to your well-being in ways that feel surprisingly thoughtful. They notice things. They remember your needs. They anticipate problems. They quietly look for ways to make your life easier or safer. What is interesting is that these actions are usually followed by an immediate attempt to play them down. They may go out of their way to help you remember something important or support you during a hard moment, only to act as though it was no big deal. They will often present the gesture as obvious, practical, or unimportant, as if anyone would have done the same thing. That downplaying is actually part of what makes the behavior meaningful. If there were no emotional investment, there would be nothing to downplay. The avoidant who feels deeply but struggles with vulnerability often wants to show care while also protecting themselves from what that care reveals. So they do the action and then immediately reduce its apparent importance. It is almost as if they are saying, please accept this, but don't look too closely at what it means. Yet the action itself tells the real story. The words are often the defense mechanism. The behavior is where the truth lives. Real concern, attention, and protectiveness require emotional investment. They require someone to matter. And when those actions keep appearing, especially in small practical ways, they often reveal a level of attachment that the avoidant may never fully express out loud. Before ending this conversation, I want to address something that is incredibly important, because there is a danger in hearing everything we have discussed today. We have explored precise memories, future references, deeply personal disclosures, emotionally charged pushaways, and acts of protection that reveal hidden care. The risk is that you take these signs and turn them into reasons to stay emotionally attached to someone who is not currently able to give you the relationship you need. I understand why that temptation exists. When you have spent months or even years questioning whether the connection was real, any proof that confirms your experience can feel incredibly powerful. It can feel like finally getting an answer after living with uncertainty for far too long.